Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kari and today I will talk about all the books I read from June to December 2021. I know, long time no see, but there's more content coming for you this year. I'm back and I'm ready and I hope you're ready too. I haven't been doing wrap-up since May last year. I know it's a long time, but I haven't been reading many books. If you're curious about my previous wrap-ups, I will leave my playlist here and in the description below. But today we are going to talk about all the books that I read since June to December 2021. There are not a lot, and a lot of them are rereads or short books. I was going through kind of a reading slump throughout those months, and last year wasn't my best reading year, but let's get started with these books. The first book I finished was Pinocchio by Carlo Collodi. I already loved the story of Pinocchio from the Disney movie, but I wanted to see how the original story was. And I like to see that this story is a huge metaphor about parenthood and children's behavior. We get many life lessons and it's more noticeable here in the book than in the Disney movie. I always love the contrast in the Pinocchio story about the good and the bad aspects of humanity. And Pinocchio is just the best representation on an innocent person, a child, who is exposed to all of this. And he has to learn to navigate life and learn what's good, what's bad. I love the message of this book because it rewards people who are kind and do selfless acts. Because it's true, Pinocchio encounters many temptations along the way, along his journey, but he also encounters many good people and they help him in very different ways. Also, I think this is a great option, of course, for kids or to read with kids, because the book always reminds you that you should be a good person. The writing style is so simple, and so the book is very quick to read. I really recommend this classic, and I had a great time listening to the audiobook. The next book I finished was The Hunger Games. In my reread, the Hunger Games trilogy were the books that got me into reading when I was 14 years old. And I gotta say that this book, the story and what it represents will never get old. It still holds up after many years and I'm just so happy. I love the characters, I love the concept, and I love Peter Millark so much. This time I listened to the audiobooks of the whole trilogy and it was just a different experience. I gotta say that I prefer to read them physically like I did the first time, but it was a great experience nonetheless. I don't have anything else more to say about The Hunger Games. You have to read it. It is a modern classic to this point and I think everyone should give it a chance, in case you haven't, of course. The next book I finished was The Wizard of Oz, and this was also a reread. The first time I read it in Spanish and then in English. This is a timeless story about how a little girl named Dorothy gets to this wonderful place called Oz. It tells a story on how she encounters many peculiar characters, friends and foes, and how she develops the relationship with many of them. It is just a quick adventure, very easy and quick to read. I think it is a great book for children and a great fantasy book in general. The world is very imaginative. There are a lot of strange creatures and magic, so that's fantastic. And it is a classic for a reason, so I think you should read it. Next, I finished Catching Fire, my reread of the trilogy, and I gotta say Catching Fire is just a perfect book. It is a masterpiece. It's the way that sequels had to be done. I think that this sequel is even better than the first book in my opinion, and I know that a lot of people can agree with that. It feels like Catching Fire takes the story of the Hunger Games and it makes everything greater, better, and more dangerous. I gotta applaud this book because the pacing is just mind-blowing. You cannot stop reading this book. That happened to me the first time and now, and I'm just surprised at how it's written and how it makes you want to just finish the story, to know what's going to happen. All the new characters and the new devices for the 75th Hunger Games were great and added value to the story. I love following Katniss's perspective and I love how real she feels in the way that Suzanne Collins writes her. Peeta is probably my favorite character, and in this book we got a lot of great interactions between Katniss and Peeta, which is the couple, the main couple of the Hunger Games. I remember that when I was younger I was a huge Katniss and Gale stan. I underlined a lot of scenes when they were together. And I don't know why, because when I watched the movies I prefer Peeta, but somehow while I was reading I liked Gale. Now there's no discussion, I prefer Peeta. And this book has one of my favorite book conclusions ever, because the last chapters are so addictive, believe me. I'll never stop loving Catching Fire and the Hunger Games in general, but I just think that this is the masterpiece from the trilogy. The next book is The Little Prince. This is not a reread, finally. I wanted to read this book for so long because I've heard that it was life-changing for many people, a lot of people's favorites, and that's why I just wanted to see what the fuss was all about. I got the ebook in English. I wasn't sure if I wanted to read it in English or in Spanish because the original is in French, but I'm not at that level to read in French. As it is a beloved classic, my expectations were very high, and I gotta say that although I did really enjoy it, it wasn't life-changing for me. The plot is quite simple and the characters are good, but the best part of the book are the metaphors. This is a very introspective take on life, on society, and especially people. It explores different perspectives of different kind of people, how they perceive life and how they can consider things important or unimportant. I feel like this book really gives you clarity on what truly matters in life. And that is just great. I'm glad I read it. So as I said, this wasn't the best book that I've read, but it is worth reading, and I really appreciate how it tackles many important topics in just a simple, creative way. And the last book that I finished was Mockingjay, of course, finishing the trilogy. And I gotta say that the first time that I read Mockingjay, I cried like a baby with the ending. This book hits you in the heart with tragedy after tragedy, not just the ending. The conclusion is brilliant. I just don't know what else to say. Suzanne Collins is a goddess and she writes perfect books. I feel like Katniss suffers a lot throughout the whole trilogy, but this is the worst part. I don't usually say a lot of spoilers in these reviews, but now I'm gonna say a spoiler. In case you haven't read Mockingjay, you can skip to this part of the video. I have to say that Prim's death was devastating. There's no other way to say it. I was heartbroken. Although I hated it, I think it made sense. It was kind of poetic, but it was the worst loss that Katniss could have ever. And that's why I think this book is so heartbreaking in many aspects. Also with Finnick, I don't want to talk about Finnick because that really hurts a lot. Great people, great characters, important for the protagonist. Death. Also, I love how these books represent mental health. I think that's something that not a lot of books explore, and here you can explore that through Katniss. It's always a lot what's going through her mind. There's always a problem after another problem, and she sometimes can't deal with it. That's very real, and I like that Suzanne Collins presents that. Okay, the love triangle was big in this book, I gotta say. Although it was very clear that Peeta was gonna be the one. Still, Katniss' struggle and her mixed feelings for Gale were very well written and very interesting to read, I gotta admit that. And as an ex-Gale fan, I gotta say that that was well done. The feeling of this book is just like Phoenix said, another Hunger Games. It doesn't feel like reality, but it is reality now. But for the characters as they were in the Hunger Games, they feel now like their lives are the Hunger Games, and that's just a great thing. It's so poetic and so well done. Now there's the harsh reality of the rebellion that's even worse than the Hunger Games, so it's the Hunger Games but in a greater scale. So the epilogue, the last page of the book, it always makes me cry, and I thank you, Suzanne Collins, for that. In conclusion, this trilogy is brilliant. It still holds up, and I gotta say that it's just magnificent. You gotta read it, really. I think this will stand for many years to come as one of the best trilogies ever. That was it for the wrap up. I told you that it was full of old favorites, full of rereads, but I promise you that this year, 2022, I'm focusing on new books, no more rereads. So the next wrap ups that you will see will be full of new reads for me. Now I have to talk about the DNF, and sadly it is the last book from the Raven Boys. The Raven King, that's what it's called, by Maggie Stiefvater Potter. I had to DNF this book because I didn't care about the story anymore. I was listening to the audiobook and I wasn't even paying attention. I don't know what happened with me in this series. The first book was great. I loved it a lot. I loved the characters, especially Gansey. But then the second book happened, it wasn't as good. The third book happened, it was meh, and now the final book I couldn't even finish it. I don't know if you want to leave spoilers about what happens at the end, because I've heard that it's sad. You can leave them there because I don't care about spoilers anymore about this. This series has great characters. I'm not saying it's bad, and I've heard that it's not for everyone, and that's true. Sadly, it wasn't for me. I've always wanted to know what was going on with the mystery, and there weren't many answers. You read and read and read and still were at the same place, and the world just kept on changing on them, and they didn't know what was going on. I didn't know what was was going on, and that's why I DNF'd it, because I had to. And that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give it a like and share it with your friends. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I upload videos about books, TV shows, and movies every week. You can click here to subscribe. You can watch more of my videos right here, and I will see you next time. And this is more noticeable here in the book, obviously, than in the... Aquí quédate, a dormir. I always love the contrast in the Pinocchio story. Bro, no.